everyone in the region is shouting, Go Delta. Premium gasoline in a fully stocked C-store. So there's only one place you should be, Delta Petroleum, Go baby. Delta.
Back to school shouldn't meet you unprepared. St. Kitts Credit Union's Back to School loan helps you borrow up to $10,000 with flexible repayment plans, fast approval, supportive terms. Invest in your child's future with confidence, because every child deserves a strong start. Start today at www.skccu.com or call 465-2272. SKCU, invested in their future with you.
Hey, Webmaster here. I stay connected to Freedom with the Freedom SKN app. Simply search for the Freedom app in the Android's Play Store or the Apple's App Store and download it. Enjoy world-class radio at its best, anytime, anywhere. Become a Freedom apper today.
Good afternoon to all my friends in Radio Lion. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all my listeners who make great sacrifices to reschedule the activity so that they can be with me. Good afternoon to all those who are listening to us outside of St. Kitts. All those who send me email and WhatsApp and let me know that they are listening in other Caribbean countries. It is now 1:49 p.m. and we are broadcasting from St. Kitts Nevis, Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. This is Freedom FM 106.5. This is Issues with your host, Coach Adrian. And I've always said, and I believe it in my heart, and you better believe it too, it's great to have you on my show. We are going right into our program. It is, of course, a Caribbean day. I'm just reminding you that it is hot. You expect it to be hot because it's a Caribbean summer and it's supposed to be hot. But the good thing is, I think in the morning we had some rain. The rain would have moderated the heat or the temperature somewhat. And of course, to those who are listening outside of St. Kitts, don't forget, St. Kitts is unique in that it is blessed with both the Atlantic breeze and the Caribbean, and the breeze from the Caribbean Sea. So it's a magnificent Caribbean day. Today, we start our new series that I promised you weeks ago. I have entitled the new series, The New World Economy. The New World Economy, that's our new series. Let us run. Let's run like Julian Alfred. In St. Lucia, we call her Juju, the fastest woman in the world. An economic order A new economic order, some refer to it as a new world order, is emerging, largely defined and shaped by the United States of America. And small, open, dependent, and vulnerable island states, island nations like St. Kitts and Nevis, are likely to experience, in fact, has already begun to experience a painful adjustment. And of course, they will find it very challenging doing business in this new economic order. Today, I want to begin talking about the international developments, the changing U.S. foreign policy, and the challenges and, of course, opportunities they present to St. Kitts and Nevis, the Caribbean, and other developing nations. I have been doing some voluminous research for some time now, and I want to talk about, particularly emphasize the related issues confronting Caribbean government and Caribbean people in that new economic order. I will, of course, emphasize the St. Kitts and Nevis response, that is the response to the changes in the global economy by the St. Kitts and Nevis government, whoever is in power. And to the developments, together, you and me, we will talk about government's management of the economy, the approach to economic development, how government manage growth and job creation, and under, of course, the new challenges posed by the new shaping or emerging global economy. I'm going to take my time to discuss the issues. Now, you better believe me, I'm going to take my time to discuss the issues. I'm not going to cut off my callers. Now, I am not going to cut you off because I want you to express yourself. I want you to participate, and I want you to say all what you want to say, because in the process, you are educating us. But of course, I challenge you to be brief. Sometimes if you have 3 questions, maybe you can ask 2, or you can ask 1. And remember, I have to write what you are saying so that I can respond. Unless if you are giving an opinion, I don't have to respond. But if you wish me to respond, the fewer issues or questions or queries that you put on the table, because we have to allow for other people to call, the better chances I will have to be able to respond to the question. So I will not be cutting off, and that's my philosophy here. I don't want to cut people, but I want people to be mature and to be a part of the process, helping the process in its smooth running. I'm going to let people express themselves. I want people to disagree, and to disagree freely, respectfully, and professionally. I will try to present the facts in a fair and an unbiased manner, and without any strings attached. Now, you better believe me, I don't have any strings attached. The only string that I have attached, I must confess, is the string to Jesus Christ and God himself, because that is the only person that controls me. I must tell you that. So when I say I don't have strings attached, I have strings attached to Jesus, my Lord, and God, who's my creator. Apart from that, no strings attached. I have love and respect and whatever for my wife and my family, but strings attached only to God. I cannot tell you how many talk shows we will have to deal with the vexing global developments, because the developments are, in fact, are new every day. But we will have breaks, of course. For example, we will have a break to discuss the October IMF World Economic Outlook. The World Economic Outlook is produced or published by the IMF twice a year, in April and in October. We're expecting one in October. When that comes, that will give us a fair understanding, because that will be the first World Economic Outlook since the sweep of those universal tariff unleashed by the United States of America. So that will be a critical one. So I'm going to take a break to discuss that and to discuss the implication for that for St. Kitts. Now, of course, a lot of my discussion is going to zero on St. Kitts, as I have said. We're going to take breaks to discuss the upcoming government's budget in December. The government has the budget coming December. Last December, we were not able to do that because of the different programs that we had. This time I want to take time so that we can look at the budget, we can discuss the budget, we can raise the issues arising out of the budget. And because it is kind of, it's halfway, it's about 2 more years before election. So any budget now is a kind of an election budget. So we are going to take our time, and I'm going to go into it in detail. If I get people who are willing to come, experts to discuss, which I'm going to bring them. Outside of that, we are going to do justice. Now, next year, 2026, we expect the next IMF report on St. Kitts. So when that comes out, we take another break, and we are going to discuss that report in thorough detail. Why? Because I suspect that is going to be the report just before, the only report just before perhaps next election, whenever it will be. After each break, we will go back, of course, to the series that is, don't forget, the series is the New World Economy, the New World Economy series. After each break, we go back to it, okay? Now, did I hear somebody asking, why are you doing that, coach? Did I hear anybody ask that question, or am I hearing that? Well, because I'm doing that because the emerging challenges, they are here to stay. You better believe it. They are here to stay. No matter which party is in power in St. Kitts and Nevis, they can't escape it. They cannot escape it. The development in the global economy, even if the actors, or if you want, the nation that is behind those wide changes, even if the leadership changes in the U.S., it doesn't matter. The rearrangement has already been there. And therefore, the world economy and the world politics or international relation has to deal with that on that basis. So in that case, we can't escape. And I am going to tell you, I'm no prophet, but I have been studying economics for a long time. And I have sat before a lot of great economists. I have been taught by a number of legendary economists. I am sensing any government that takes over St. Kitts, from the government that is in place now, from now on, as we speak on the 29th of September 2025, going down the road, it will be very difficult to govern a small island state like St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica, the whole Eastern Caribbean, of course, the larger Caribbean, but some of them have more leverage than us, as I will detail later on, because they have greater resource endowment. This afternoon, we begin with the changing U.S. policy and the impact on the Caribbean. All what I said before was by way of introduction. So, okay, ready to go. Let's run like juju. For my introduction, I draw from my Laughters movie. You know, I'm very fond of laughter movies that make you laugh. I have a lot of that. Oh, I have a lot of that. Black and white, you name them. I love sports movies. I love music and dance. I love music and dance, Caribbean music and dance in particular, or black music and dance. Particularly on evenings, I love to look at my laughter movies. And one of them that really fascinates me, I play it so often, it's called The Blues Brothers. Now, if you haven't seen The Blues Brothers, are you missing out? The Blues Brothers. In fact, there's Blues Brothers Part 1 and Blues Brothers Part 2. I'm talking about Blues Brothers Part 1. Now, in that movie, Jake is coming from prison. And Elwood Blues have just collected them from prison, and they are moving out, of course. But the first place that they are supposed to visit is the orphanage where they were raised as boys before Jake went to prison. So, after the visit to the orphanage, Jake and Elwood, they were counseled to visit the Triple Rock Church. Now, if you look at the movie, you'll see why I'm spending time on that. And I'm using that as an introduction. In that Triple Rock Church, it so happened that Reverend Cleophas James, played by the famous James Brown, was the preacher. So, during the preaching, Jake, who stayed at the back of the church, kind of not willing whether to go in and whatever, but Elwood himself had decided that he was going. So, Cleophas James looked and pointed at Jake and asked him, "Do you see the light?" He asked him a second time, "Do you see the light?" He asked him a third time, "Do you see the light?" Then Jake wake up out of sleep, and Jake exclaimed, "I have seen the light. I have seen the light." And then he turned to Elwood Blues, his brother, and told him that he had a vision. Elwood said, "What's the vision?" He said, "The band." I said, "Peter, where are you going with that? You see what I'm going with it?" He said, "The band." He said, "We're going to put that band back together because the orphanage needs $5,000. If they can put that $5,000 in the county treasury in 6 or 5 days' time, look, they will not be able to, government will not get rid of the orphanage." And that became their mission. And the rest of the movie, you go and look at it, they're going to move on their mission to get that $5,000. But the key thing is, they could have not done anything until Jake saw the light. Sadly, Caribbean governments do not see vision. They don't see vision, so they don't see the light. Caribbean governments do not dream dreams. Caribbean governments have tunnel vision. They can see only 5 more years. I hope you see where I'm going with that. They can only see 5 more years. They can only see another term. Most governments, in fact, when we speak of government in the Caribbean, we have to be very careful because most of what we call government, they are not really government, they are party in power. In fact, we learned that at school. C.L.R. James wrote a whole book on that, Party in Power, and you can go and check it out, a beautiful piece to read. When I did political science, I had to read that. They are really party in power, not governments. Governments administer the country and they administer the economy. So what we really have in most cases in the Caribbean, is party in power, not government. So prime ministers don't see oftentimes human and economic development. Many don't see household wealth and creation. The vast majority don't see planning and development for the next generation. No, they see 5 more years. They don't go beyond the election manifesto. Of course, what is a manifesto? A pictorial wish list for vote catching. I don't take that serious. In fact, they taught us at the university to almost ignore that, because that is basically a pictorial list, like an artist's impression to catch vote. From Belize in the north, through Montserrat with a handful of people, to Guyana in South America, the political leaders of the party in power, they see 5 more years. 5 more years. Why? Because Caribbean politicians, Caribbean leaders, they suffer from dependency blindness. They are unable to grasp international realities, despite having physical and mental ability to see. They have no vision. Very few of them, perhaps except like leaders like Mayor Motley. She took Barbados out of wreckage, and today Barbados registered 4% GDP growth, and things are moving to the extent that the World Bank actually, although Barbados is a high-income country, the World Bank made exception and gave them a tremendous grant for social safety net. The brilliance of the leadership of the woman. But the billboard on the U.S. highway, that's how I put it, the billboard on the U.S. highway reads, and I quote, "Plain condition change. Plain conditions change. The days of trade liberalization is gone. The days of U.S. dollar diplomacy is gone. The days of U.S. global police is gone. The days of USA, the Statue of Liberty says, come, is gone." Somebody asked me, is that a sign of time? I say, well, I don't know. Read your Bible. But one person that came to my mind is the great reggae singer, Bob Andy. Check out Bob Andy. And he had a beautiful piece, a magnificent classic in the 70s called Check It Out. Check It Out. Go and check that song and go and check it out. And if you listen to that song and you really meditate on it, it will give you understanding to some extent of what is happening today and what I'm talking about. The point is, the new U.S. administration do not grandfather countries and leaders anymore. The new U.S. administration do not grandfather countries and leaders anymore. They do not grandfather countries who has nothing to offer. And they do befriend government leaders who have nothing to offer them. If the administration gives, it must get in return. The playing field has changed. Lest you forget, the universal U.S. tariff on April 2, it brought tariff rates to the levels not seen in 100 years. So this is not just happened. This is a deliberate policy. This is a well-researched policy. This is a major watershed in global economics. In fact, the IMF said that after that they expect this to change the whole, if you want, global transactions and so on. That is why I am so eager. Waiting for the World Economic Outlook, which is to be published in October. Now, my listeners, remember that the President of the United States is very, very clear. Is very, very clear in terms of policy. What are the economic objectives that he wants to achieve? You can like him, you can hate him if you want. But one thing that is clear and one thing that is rational, he laid out his economic objective very, very clearly. Let me just refresh your mind, lest you forget, because a few months ago I said it. I'm going to refresh your mind, so that whether you think he's a good man or a bad man or you want to curse him, you can do whatever you want. The fact is, he is not just operating, or he did not levy the tariffs haphazardly. No. There is a set of economic objectives that he wants to achieve. And there are 6 of them. 1, he made it very clear that he was using the tariff to boost the U.S. economy. That is rational. Whether it is painful for A or B or C or D, that is rational. That's what tariff needs to do. Number 2, he said he was using the tariff to encourage U.S. consumers to buy American-made goods. That's what most countries do. That's great domestic economics. Buy America. I remember when I was schooled in Barbados, it was very, very big in Barbados. Buy Barbados. Buy Barbados. Buy Barbados. And it's beautiful. In fact, I have done some research and some recommendation on that for St. Kitts. When we reach on that in part of the thing, I'm going to share it with you. And point number 3, the president said he wants to use tax revenue to spur domestic investment. This is not the voice of a madman. He wants to use tax revenue. He's going to create the revenue, and then he is going to use that revenue for him to incentivize domestic investment. And of course, also international, to draw international investment. Number 4, he said to increase revenue collection to reduce the U.S. budget deficit. And he means that. At a subsequent time, I will tell you the billions of dollars that the treasuries have collected and so on. And whether it is painful or not, I can tell you, they are collecting a lot of money, a lot of money. Number 5, he said to give access to goods that the economy heavily depend upon. So in other words, he wants to make sure that those goods that are critical to the economy, he's going to so structure his tariff regime that these things will always be in supply in the country. This is a thinking man. He's a thinking man with a thinking team. Now, it is obvious that the president does not stand alone. He must, I suppose, he must have scores of well-researched top economists and other people, because the research is very good. It may be painful for the third country, but it is just sharp. And point number 6, he said to give the U.S. access to critical producer inputs that are critical for U.S. international competitiveness. And this one, I want to just take a little time to explain that. And this is what you call cutting-edge thinking. He said such as minerals like uranium, copper, potash, and gold. In other words, there are a number of critical minerals that are needed if America is going to move to the international competitiveness that it requires. And if you notice, that's what he does. Look at Ukraine, if you just remember Ukraine. Look at the deal according to him, the deal. Look, those scarce resources and minerals that are in high supply over there, but that are in great demand in America, he wants that. He's going after that. Why am I saying all of that? You think I'm saying that because I like what is going on or because I support what is going on? That has nothing to do with that. I am simply discussing the economic implication, the economic underpinning, and the economic rationale that surrounds the decision. And that's important. In other words, whether you like what is happening there, this is an example of a thinking government. That's the point that I am making. This is an evidence of a thinking government, a government that pursues growth and development, a government that pursues, if you want, economic competitiveness. This is not party in power. This is not simply party in power. Now, as was the case, but notwithstanding all what I have said there, the tariff bites, of course. It bites. And it is already beginning to bite us. It's already beginning to bite us. And we have to brace ourselves, the Caribbean, brace ourselves for economic hardship down the road. Now, the Caribbean, of course, is the number one victim of those tariffs, as we explained before, but I'm just going to refresh you. As was the case for the rest of the world, the U.S. changed the trading bilateral with CARICOM without notice. Oh, yes. It's like on the 1st of April, everything was all right. There was no tariff. Everything from the Caribbean was entering America duty-free. Oh, that is beautiful. But when the American goods come, we were free to put exact high tariff on it. And the following day, the platform changed. And remember what I said, the sign on the U.S. highway, plain conditions change. And that's not change, that's not coming back. Why? Because since 1983, under President Ronald Reagan, in fact, from George Bush to Bill Clinton to Barack Obama and to Joe Biden, the U.S. supported Caribbean economic development through bilateral agreements. They did not have trade pact or free trade pact with the Caribbean, but they enter into those bilateral agreements because, by and large, the U.S. was the one benefiting 80% of the bilateral agreement, because it opened the doors for the investors, the manufacturers, and the this and the that, and to come in. And of course, we know we set up things for them, the 807 and whatever. We set up Paul Southwell in St. Lucia, other places and whatever. And they come in and they take over those screwdrivers industries and so on. We give them all the benefits, duty-free and this and that. And we give them slave labor and whatever, low-wage people and this and that, and people who are working from 7 to 6 or whatever it is, and they make their money. And of course, they have the right to repatriate the profits and this and that and that. And after when the period of the duty-free is coming to an end, they simply change from one company to another. But the fact is, the benefit for us was, of course, you get jobs, low-paid jobs, but you get jobs, maybe a few middle managers and whatever. And then what you got was that whatever you produce in the Caribbean, for your manufacturing sector, they entered the U.S. economy. And don't forget, the U.S. economy right now is about over 300 million. That's a tremendous large economy. And that would enter duty-free because you are high cost. That is, if when taxes are placed on your goods, because your cost is very high, you're not able to compete with other people who sell on the U.S. market. So that helped you because you know your goods would go inside there duty-free. That changed on the 2nd of April without notice. That's the point that we are making. That changed without notice. Good. Of course, you know what the Caribbean countries are. The Caribbean countries, we know, Antigua, Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana. Guyana is in South America, but they are part of CARICOM. Jamaica, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, or St. Christopher and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, and of course later on came Haiti. The point is, CARICOM countries, more so, the little mini states of the Eastern Caribbean, St. Kitts, well, we can't call Montserrat. Montserrat is a few people living there, and England wants them to leave the place and to come to England. They're not even spending on infrastructure. So from St. Kitts going down to Antigua, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, those little mini states, they have nothing to offer the new U.S. administration. I want you to get that point. Get that point, and don't let people fool you on that. The Eastern Caribbean countries and government have nothing to offer the Caribbean, the U.S. government. In fact, President Trump don't want to hear them because they have nothing to offer. They have nothing to offer. And he only makes deal. From Grenada to St. Kitts, Nevis, they have no mineral resources to offer. And that would be nice if they had that because the government want that. But they have sulfur. I was doing my research and realized they have sulfur. We have lots of sulfur in St. Lucia. If they want sulfur, we can give them sulfur, you know. We have sulfur. We even have a drive-in volcano. We have sulfur, but they don't want sulfur. President Trump plays the zero-sum game. Today, America makes deals. If you want to ease the tax burden, if any of these little islands in the Eastern Caribbean or CARICOM want to ease the tax burden, they want the U.S. to ease the tax burden, they must do one or all of the following. I hope you have been following. I have done the research and I have sought to put them in a way that I can articulate it to you. And I will tell you why I am doing that later on. One, America demands that all these countries, all countries in the world that America has classified as part of the axis of evil, including Cuba, China, and the BRICS Plus. BRICS Plus, that is the new economic bloc or power bloc that is formed, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and of late, Iran and the rest of them have joined. That is from the Middle East. And from the Middle East. These are part of the American axis of evil. He says you are to isolate yourself from them. 2, he says break all ties with them, break trading ties, break diplomatic ties, break humanitarian ties, break investment ties. Number 3, he said, don't accept aids from them, technical or financial. So which means, therefore, all those nurses and those doctors that are coming to the Caribbean in St. Kitts, and when we go to the hospital, they take so good care of them. You got to send them back. Send them back and tell Cuba, we don't want you, we don't want you, we don't want these people, we stay in for America. And if you cannot do all of these things, or if you want to do all of these things, and you can add up, you can show your willingness to accept U.S. deportees as a third country dumping ground, then you can get your tax burden eased. Now, what I have written there, don't believe that I am just writing that as a joke. And don't believe what I am saying here is just a prophet of doom. If you say that, it means that you live in a world that you're not aware. You don't know what is happening to you. You don't know what is happening around you. These are the conditions that the new administration has set out. Some of them, the CARICOM countries, have responded to them. When we go into the detail, we'll deal with that. The new America is no longer a compassionate nation. The new America is no longer a compassionate nation. In America today, there is no guarantee of scholarship to foreign students, and then after they have done well, they get an HB visa for employment after they complete college and universities. The days for that is gone. There is no guarantee for that. And many of the people in the Caribbean benefited from that. Oh yes, they did, and I'm so happy for that. My children was part of that. They benefited from that. That's no more. Point number 2. Recently, the U.S. Department of State announced a major change in the application for non-immigrant visas. Applicants must schedule visa interviews in their country of citizenship or legal residence. And that applies to all non-immigrant visa categories. That is those who want it for tourism, those who want it for holidays, those who want it for business, those who want it for students, and so on. What are we really saying here? It is saying here that a Jamaican who is living in St. Kitts, you can't go to Barbados to get a visa anymore, you know. Now, St. Kitts have become very international, and I know that. We have people from all corners of the earth. That is as a result of the CBI program and the transformation of the country under Denzel Douglas. So somebody who is living here from Australia, or somebody who is living here from India, you cannot go to Barbados and renew or apply for a visa. You cannot do that anymore. You have to go back to India. You have to go back to Australia. You have to go back to Grenada. And from there, you will apply. Things are changing. Point number 3. The days of multiple indefinite visas are over. We know that. In addition to the non-immigration visa fee of US $185, there is now more red tape, increased scrutiny, increased background check, and a newly imposed $250 US integrity fee. And the embassy may require applicants from certain countries to pay bonds of up to $15,000 to enter the U.S. What are we really saying there? In other words, Not only that you have to pay an additional $250 integrity fee for your application, not only that you have all the red tapes and the background check and whatever, they have to check your phone and your email and your everything, whatever. But if they deem that the country from which you are applying, let us say they deem St. Kitts, they say, well, fellas from St. Kitts, boy, these fellas are likely, man, to, when they go up there, man, they don't return, man, they become undocumented. They say, no problem, we asking you to put up 15,000 US bond to ensure that when the time comes, you go back to your country and that is refunded to you. I know much about the refund, but that is what the regulations say. The days of going for 6 months to work illegally and return with some money, some American dollars, some green dollars, is of course too risky now to do that. I tell you, if you do that, you're taking a big risk. It is very risky. Why? Because you are likely to find yourself picked up and you end up in a third country. I'm going to speak about that later on. You end up in a third country and you never see St. Kitts again. You never see your family again. You never see the money you had in the bank account. You never see any house or anything because you pick up and send to a detention, a detention center, and then the plane takes you to a third country. That can happen, and there are many cases that it is happening. Application for green card is now a painful, ongoing process. In fact, I liken that process to the 14th station of the cross in the Lenten season. Now, those of you all who are Catholic, you might understand that, I know about this thing because I was supposed to be a Catholic priest. I know about this thing. So there is the 14th station, and I can tell you by the time you reach first station, you're tired, your knees bruised and so on, but you have to go through 14th station. That is the green card application now. And finally, that's not all, but I'm going to stop on this one. Starting January 1st, 2026, a new 1% tax will be levied on all remittances leaving the United States of America. You have to laugh at that. If you don't laugh at that, so what? You get lamentation. You have to laugh at that. In other words, not only is that the whole developments that is happening in the domestic economy in America is going to impact negatively on our remittances, but not only that, the new government have agreed that as of January 1st, 2026, a 1% tax, and the tax will be collected by the remittance service providers. Now, the days of lamentation are on the horizon, and that is what I have come to say. Open your eyes. The days of lamentation are on the horizon. But the leaders, the politicians, and the governments of the Caribbean, they are behaving. That's why I started with laughter, the Blues Brothers. Do you see the light? They are behaving as if it is business as usual. Why? They are deliberately giving the voters a false sense of security. Why? Because all they are seeing is 5 more years. And I'm going to repeat that. I said that our program from now on this series would be fair and balanced, would be professional, but it would be truthful, because we have no axe to grind. We have no strings attached. I repeat, And I'm going to open the line. Just before I open the line, I'm going to repeat the conclusion. The days of lamentation are on the horizon. But the politicians, the leaders of governments, the party in power are behaving as if it is business as usual. And why are they doing it? Because they are deliberately giving the voters a false sense of security. Why? Because all they see is 5 more years. We are going to stop there for some advertisement. And after the advertisement, I'm going to open the line. You are listening to Freedom FM 106.5. You are listening to Issues with Coach Adrian. We are beginning a new series called The New World Economy. And today is our first part. We take some advertisement.
From the pitch to the palm of your hand, Betcage Sports brings to you iGaming, the ultimate dual gaming experience. Sports and iGaming in one powerful platform, live and legal. Tap your screen, place a bet, spin the reels, cash out fast. No delays, pure excitement. BetCageSports.com. Download the app and sign up today. Play responsibly. Must be 21 and over. Proud sponsor of Cricket West Indies, where a percentage of every dollar played with Cage goes to Windies for cricket and cricket development.
For life's finest moments, celebrate them with Skoal Premium Lager. Pure malt, pure class, pure perfection. Skoal, class and perfection in a bottle.
Reliable, dependable, Delta. If you live here in St. Kitts and your tank on E, there's only one place that you should be. Maybe driving in Nevis and you need some fuel. Go straight to Delta. Don't be a fool. Get your cooking gas fast. All petroleum needs ULSD. Everyone in the region is shouting, Go Delta. Premium gasoline in a fully stocked C-store. So there's only one place you should be. Delta Petroleum, baby.
Back to school shouldn't meet you unprepared. St. Kitts Credit Union's Back to School loan helps you borrow up to $10,000 with flexible repayment plans, fast approval, supportive terms, invest in your child's future with confidence. Because every child deserves a strong start. Start today at www.skccu.com or call 465-2272. SKCU, invested in their future with you.
Hey, Webmaster here. I stay connected to Freedom with the Freedom SKN app. Simply search for the Freedom app in the Android's Play Store or the Apple's App Store and download it. Enjoy world-class radio at its best, anytime, anywhere. Become a Freedom Apper today.
Welcome back to Issues. You are listening to Issues with Coach Adrian. We have just begun our first part on the new series, The New World Economy. We are opening the line now. We want you to participate. We want you, the listeners, to share your views. You have knowledge. In fact, I want to thank all the people who give me information, those who send information to me by email, by WhatsApp, those who give me hard information. I'm very, very happy for that. We want you to participate. We want you to share your ideas. We want you to disagree. We want you to disagree professionally and to disagree respectfully. Ask your questions. The numbers to call, 662 1065, that is 6621065, 465-6474, or 465-0546. 662-1065, 465-6474, or 465-0546. Now, I'm going to discuss, somebody is online. Once you're online, I said I'm going to take anybody. You online, please, sir.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Mr. Mark Mahon.
Yes. I agree with you that the government don't seem to be taking the new economic order seriously, right? And that is so even here, where you don't see any change in how government operates.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the World Bank who, for instance, said that St. Kitts and Nevis government employed the most, out of all the countries in the Eastern Caribbean, St. Kitts government public sector was the most bloated,
Mm-hmm.
of upwards of 34% of the working population.
Yes, the
You don't
IMF
see-
said
you
that. Go on.
Right. You don't see any shift in that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You also don't see any preparation for the populace
Mm-hmm.
for things that might be coming, might be on the horizon,
Mm-hmm.
that might be detrimental to the country.
Mm-hmm.
You see, for instance, they're not preparing us for any kind of belt tightening.
Mm-hmm.
The government, I mean, I could imagine their travel bills, right?
Okay.
I mean, throughout government,
Mm-hmm.
you're not seeing any belt tightening anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree with you that we may be in for some torrid times.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, though, we are more hopeful. Even though the United States might be tightening up in all respects, can you say the same thing for our other traditional sources of, shall we say, migration, the migration patterns that we've had? I'm thinking Canada, the UK,
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
neighboring islands,
Mm-hmm.
because when you look at the growth rate of Guyana, for instance, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people might start heading south instead of thinking north,
That's correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, if it's one thing we're sure of throughout history,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen it with our migration patterns,
Mm-hmm.
people always go in search of opportunities when things get hard.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Panama, whether it's the U.S. Virgin Islands,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's further afield, you can be sure of that. So that might be a kind of a safety valve
Mm-hmm.
for us, don't you think?
Very nice, very nice. Let me respond to you. Of course, I have written it down, so I'm going to take, because I love them, I'm going to take them one by one. And but of course, if they have any call, we take the calls and I write it down. Okay. Let me respond. You have any call? Okay. Let me respond to you. Let's take the very first one first. You said government operation there. In other words, just like government is a business, and I've normally said it like government, the only thing that is different from a business, because government has the power for fiat. They can raise money, and they have access to a greater leverage than you. So in a sense, government do not get in difficulty the same way that a business gets, so to speak. But government is like a household. When things are great, you save. That's what it is. And therefore, when things are bad, you will be able, therefore, for you to cushion the impact of that. And in a sense, later on, I'm going to give some detail about the government's operation. But let me just, since you asked it, let me just highlight it now. Just highlight cursively. At the next time, I'll be able to read the tables to you and whatever. In fact, government savings has fallen significantly. If you look at the last IMF report, it says that in 2023, government savings was about 20% of GDP. In other words, for every dollar that the country made, it was, let us say, it was contributing, government savings was about 20% of that. By 2024, not only that, the government expenditure had increased, but its savings went down to 10% of GDP. Now, that's not a joke. In other words, it is not doing well, but yet the thing to cushion it, that is the savings, is plummeting. So you're right, you made a good point there, my economist. The next one that you said that we don't see the tightening in the case of payroll. In fact, the data shows very clearly. Under the Douglas administration, we had many, many fights with him at the central bank. We told him the government, the public service, the civil service, not the public service, because there are two services. Yeah? The civil service has all those departments of government, the ministries and the so and so, so and so. Now, the other, when you speak of the quasi-government or the non-civil service, that is like those quasi-bodies like National Bank, Social Security, NHC, name them. Now, is when we put all of those together with the civil service, we call it the public service. But here we're talking about the civil service. The IMF said that the civil service, long since I was at the central bank under Douglas, was too high. And that they must do something, stimulate economy, so that the economy can create jobs and stop absorbing. When Timothy came, Timothy blew it up. He blew it up like a balloon. Under this new administration, the balloon is about to burst. Almost every other person working for government. So when you go to the department, you see people playing with their telephone, their this, and there is what we call in economics overcrowding. Overcrowding, so you know what is happening in productivity for. They don't have work to do. And not only that they don't have work to do, and they are playing on their phones. So that's the point. And then the IMF showed, and I'm going to discuss it with you later on. I have the detail, but I'm just answering you the things that I know on top of my head. The payroll is too high because the civil service is bloated. In fact, according to the last IMF report, payroll and related expenses of the government was over 80 cents to every dollar that the government collects in revenue. Now get me clear what I'm saying. To every dollar collected in revenue, payroll was almost about 80 cents. Now, basically, if it's 80 cents, you're in trouble. Because you need money for working capital. You need money to take care of the schools, the hospitals, the this and that. You need money to take care of the roads. You need money to buy goods and services to run the ministries and the department. So that is the point the economist is making. The other point that you make is there is no particular national savings policy. That is a good point that you make. But you see, for you to really have those things, governments, and that is why I began by saying that despite what you think of the new U.S. administration, there is a strong economic underpinning that drives those activities or those decisions, no matter how painful that they are to the third country, to us and others. But this government in St. Kitts does not have a development plan. So if it does not have a development plan, a national savings policy does not just fall out of the air, my friend. So, because in a sense, if you don't have a plan for building a house, then you come back and you say, well, boy, this door is in the wrong place, the door is in the wrong place. But if you say the door is in the wrong place, you must bear the cost of breaking down the door and fixing it up. So that is the point. But later on, when we go into what the government should do, I will give you more detail on that, because I have some good tables and some whatever on that. I have done some comparative research on that, not only on St. Kitts, but for the rest of the Caribbean. And I have categorized them by income countries, middle income, high income, and whatever. And they are all coming straight from the IMF reports and central bank statistics. You made a very good point, a very good last point that you made here. You said that there is consolation. And that is why I said that in this series, we are going to speak about the challenges and the opportunities. And I agree with you. I had the privilege last year of going down for the business end of the CPL. And I decided to stay at the CPL. After the CPL, I stayed in Guyana for 1 month. I stayed there for 1 month. Yes, okay. You are on air, please. Once you're on air, we take you and I continue what I'm saying afterwards. You're on air, please.
Hey, Elder, how are you doing?
Very nice.
All right. I would like you to elaborate a bit more on some of the potholes that we're going to meet while we're going down the road if nothing changes from the information that you have brought forward. So basically, from what you're saying, I would like you to elaborate a bit more, because it's a very serious issue. And I would like you to just kind of give the people a little more of what's going to happen.
Yes.
When they wake up in the morning and there's no sugar in the container.
That is correct. And that is
okay,
very nice. Now, I will let me just respond to that quickly, and then I'll go back to the last point that Mr. McMahon gave. Thanks very much, and feel free to call again. And as I said in that program, I'm going to take my time. I have done my research. I'm going to thread it out and whatever, and I will try my best not to show any partiality to no government. I don't care about that. It's only Jesus Christ that is. I am a Christian, and I just know Jesus Christ, and He is. That's what I know. The truth sets you free. The 100%. Truth sets you free. Yes. So let me just deal with you. In that series, I am going to first look at the changing U.S. policy and how it's affecting, if you want, the aid flow in the Caribbean. I am going to, I don't think we're going to have much time today, but I'm going to introduce it. We're going to look, for example, as the drying up of funds for USAID, for WHO, and things like that, and the implication. And I'm going to give you results, and I'm going to give you comments from governments like Jamaica and what they are feeling, what they're beginning to feel, and whatever, and then the problems that they have. In other words, all those fundings, when they dry up, the inability to really provide for those funds. And mind you, as I said, Jamaica, Holiness have done a tremendous job in Jamaica. I have been following this thing. But the thing is, a lot of the programs in the Caribbean is really buffered by international funding. That is, whether it is grants for safety nets, for education, for this, for that. So I am going to go in detail on that. Then I'm also going to go into the whole, I'm going to spend time on the changing American immigration policy and what that means for the Caribbean. I'm going to look at deportation, and I'm going to thread out and tell you what is the storm that is associated with deportation. We're going to deal with that. Then I am going to look at the capacity for St. Kitts to deal with those issues. I'm going to pull information from the IMF report. Because you see, long ago when I spoke to you about the IMF report, I just come for one program and I speak on the IMF report. But if you know the IMF report is about 50 pages. So one program cannot talk about that. But what I plan to do, as I discuss this new issue, I am pulling from the various parts of the IMF report and the central bank database. So the fiscal, the economics, I look at employment and so on. And let me tell you something. The thing is, because I'm not rushing it, some of the issues that you expecting may not come quickly. But as I said, that is why I said I don't know how many shows I'm going to have. Because the problem shall be with us all the time. I'm going to stay with the problem, but I'm going to have breaks. For example, about next week or in 2 weeks' time, the IMF is going to publish the World Economic Outlook. When that comes, I'm going to take my time and take a little move from that to really go into it and thread it. I am going, and then I go back to the series. The government has to present their budget. Now, this budget is critical, and I believe this is going to be one of the most challenging budget in the life of Labour Party as a government. And any government that is in power, this is going to be trying time for them. I'm going to take time and dissect the budget. I'm going to bring in people if I get them. Some people tell me they want to come, but they're scared and so on. So, well, I ain't scared of anything. So when they don't come, I do it myself. Whatever. So, Color, that is how I can tell you. I am going to, all the issues, I'm going to show you how it's going to impact the society, how it's going to impact the household, what is going to happen to savings. I'm going to tell you what is going to happen to inflation. I'm going to tell you about the people, because remember, we have tourism. Tourism has a short business cycle. And the next diversification that Douglas introduced is CBI. CBI, I'm going to go into CBI and show you how vulnerable CBI is. And I'm going to give you all the references from the IMF. Okay, so much for so. Going back to Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon, you made a very good point about Guyana. As I said, I stayed there for 1 month. And it was beautiful. It's magnificent. In fact, if you... Guyana is no longer... Remember, Guyana was a hippie country, you know. Guyana was so poor that it was bracketed with the poorest countries in the world, like Haiti. And Guyana, therefore, had access to massive funds. Okay, somebody is on air. Once you're on air, I take you and I go back.
Greetings.
You're on air. Greetings, please.
Yeah, Rash Kalonji here.
Yes, Kalonji, man. Thank you, man. I haven't heard you for some time. How you doing, Gaza?
I'm good, my brother.
So why are you keeping away from my program, man?
I'm not keeping away from the program. I was calling all the time. I couldn't get in.
Oh, Lord, I'm sorry. But
I called about 20 times so long.
Yeah, but you know what happened, and you told me that. I try not to cut people, man, because I want everybody to participate. So I take a decision that even if we talk about two things, the listeners must be given an air. Now talk to me now.
Well, I heard your analysis, and I don't really go for that, because the main thing that mess up this economy is not we, it's not our people, the government. It's COVID. COVID is the one that messed up this economy, and it was deliberately done. The imperialist forces brought COVID on us so we could be more dependent on them as a people. Because now we talk about inflation. We import everything. So my solutions to a lot of the problems that is affecting us is that we have to come self-sufficient in food. We got to be able to fulfill ourselves. You understand? I'm saying to you and to our people, the CBI was making money. The Prime Minister said that the year when Unity was in, they made $600 million, right? Since he got in, they only make $300 million, right? So the CBI is affected because the imperialist forces want to mash up the CBI, just like how they mash up the offshore industry in Nevis. And now we keep blaming ourselves for these things. So what I'm saying to you now, my brother, the solution to our problem, we have to turn to each other and unite with black people globally. Because the global capitalist economy is in crisis. So So we could see what happened in the Sahel states. They put out France. In Niger, France was getting uranium from Niger for 80 cents. Then they sell it on the world market for 200 euros. Now France is in problem because they can't get no uranium. France in problem. The economy. Germany in problem. England is in problem. All the major capitalist countries are in problem. But we ain't looking at it from a geopolitical standpoint. We're blaming each other. But our countries are turned to the metropolitan countries. So if they get pneumonia, we're going to get AIDS and COVID and all kind of thing. Because our economy is inextricably tied to their economy. That's why they're surviving. Because all they're doing is extracting wealth from us. But we don't look at it that way. Everything the IMF we run with. The IMF is the problem and the World Bank. The people have to unite, develop our economy, you understand, and move forward. Because this capitalist economy is done with. And that is the reality, my brother. That's how I see it, and that's how I know, because I could prove it. Dr. Timothy Harris said COVID mash up this economy in a press conference. And they want to keep mashing us up because they want us to be more dependent on them. So I'm saying to our people, our solution is for us to unite, resolve our contradictions among ourselves in this strong rivalry in terms of PAM and Labour and PLP and all these things, and come up with a policy to move forward as one. I don't know if you know I was in Africa, you know. Do you know that?
Talk, man. I tell you, man, I listen and I taking notes. I'll respond to you.
Okay, here it is. I went to the African AU meeting, the AU,
yes,
and the CARICOM meeting. They had a meeting in Addis Ababa 2 weeks ago.
Organization of African Unity.
Yeah, and CARICOM. And I was there. I was invited by the Prime Minister to go because I was dealing with reparation. I'm a member of the Reparation Committee. And when I see all those Africans, we here in the Caribbean and we gather on the continent.
But you have to go fast. I have some other people online, so quickly, yes.
Yeah, you could see the potential. When we unite, nobody could stop us. And I'm going to stop here. We're going to love one another, respect one another. And unite. Unity is the only solution to the pollution.
I have taken notes and I'm going to respond to that.
All right.
Okay, we have somebody's on air. Okay, so let me just finish with Mr. McMahon, and then Kalonjo has raised some very good points. He's saying that Guyana has become a high-income country. In fact, Guyana has become such a high-income country. It has developed significant infrastructure, and a lot of doors have been opened to Guyana. So much so that Guyana's manufacturing and whatever they have, a lot of them have strong entrance into America. And in fact, that is why Guyana is playing the political ball very well. They have refused to become part of the OPEC because America does not support OPEC and whatever, and because part of the major investors are American. Of course, an American cannot take part in OPEC because that would be against the antitrust law. And but the thing is that Guyana is where the action is. There is money, there is activity. Of course, some of those monies are skewed, and I saw it. People took me around. There are a lot of depressed communities that are black communities. So a lot of this, there seems to be a problem of inequality. But on a macroeconomic picture, Guyana is a place for great investment. In fact, if you did follow CPL, you would see that Guyana has transformed. I was telling my Guyanese friends, they don't know Guyana if they have not been to Guyana in the last 5 or so years. Now, to Kalonji, if we have nobody on the line. COVID, of course, we know COVID-19 closed the economy. If COVID-19 closed the economy, and that is why And when people call, I have always taken that position. And some people say, oh, you're supporting Timothy. And I don't care when people say things like that. I say you cannot judge him on his second term. In fact, if you want to judge him, you don't judge him on the basis of arithmetic. If you close the man country, you can't come back and tell him GDP grow by 2%, 3%. That's rubbish economics. You don't want that. The key thing he was supposed to do is to keep people alive and to keep a modicum of the economy. And I think he did that very well. He managed that very well. And even then, he was able, within that, to find tremendous government expenditure project. And the urban renewal program that he did, you cannot take that from him, whether you like it or not. So that is correct, that the COVID-19 actually did cripple the Caribbean. And for many of us, we are just beginning to get back on our feet. Now, you made a very good point. Now, when the imperialism, and I'm going to discuss that, imperialism have been enforced from colonialism. And when the imperialists do bring in the shocks, but you have to do things for yourself. You have to create opportunities for yourself. In other words, sometimes, okay, somebody is online. If you are on air, I take you. You on air, please.
Hey, Jim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, please.
And good afternoon to all the listeners.
Good afternoon.
Adrian, coach, you need to go back and come back down and just not blame the problem on one recession. Because if when you go back up, remember that the world financial meltdown, remember that?
Yeah.
Then we come back down and we got 9/11. And from 9/11, the next thing, one guy, one plane, and then security step up.
Put the phone close to your mouth. I'm not hearing you well. Yes.
Yeah, so the will start to get so more money start to spend more. And listen.
Yes.
Worse things to be there for come. Because what happened, they now to one world when one individual has stop there, one single place. So the system set up that the world have to come under one subjection. You get that? Not when they got a Bible. You see, the scripture in right both wheat and barley.
Yeah, go quick. I only have one more minute for the program. Yes.
No, well, the let go jump off, but what me try.
I'm not hearing you well. You're cutting off. But I get the point that you're making. Yeah.
Me tell all the listeners that these people control money.
Yes.
Them can decide whether recession or not.
Yes. Okay.
And
now let me tell you something. Okay. My time is up now, and remember what I said. Wherever I stop, when I come back next time, I pick up from there. So
no problem.
So now next Monday, there'll be no program next Monday. There'll be no program next Monday, the 6th. I think the government have already explained they're going to have parliament and they have advertised that. So we are going to be meeting here on the 13th. So when we meet on the 13th, I pick it up here from where we stop. So basically, I have to close the program now because it is time. Okay? You have been listening to Freedom FM 106.5. We started our discussion. It is going to be an emotional discussion. It's going to be vexing issues sometimes. But we are talking about a new world economic order that is emerging. And it has painful experiences for the Caribbean, for St. Kitts, for developing countries. And the signs thus far are showing that people of the Caribbean, people of St. Kitts must brace themselves and to put their house in order, because if not, some people are going to have it hard. And then the argument that I made here is that our leaders of government, they are behaving as if it is business as usual, as if things are good. That's not true. They are doing that deliberately because they are giving the people a false sense of security, because they want to just catch vote for 5 more years. That's why I began with laughter with the Blues Brothers. Do you see the light? Do you see the light? I'm asking you, outside of any politician, you yourself, read your newspaper, look at the radio, check your mobile phone, check your computer. All the developments are all around you. See the light. See you on the 14th of October. It was nice to have you. Bye-bye.